There appears to be mixed reviews going out there, mixed reports, better said, on Shogun. And Dana had come out about around Tuesday and said that Shogun was retired. And I don't know in what context. I heard this actually from a friend. So I don't know if Dana did an interview or it was a press day or he congratulated him on Twitter. I don't know how this came out, but Dana somewhere had stated that Shogun was retired. I don't know that I've heard that from Shogun, but in the event that our last Shogun fight has taken place, have you ever heard a bad word said about Shogun? Ever? By an opponent, a former opponent, a teammate, a friend, a family member, anyone that knows him, even a fan? One single bad word. It's one of those things, and I kind of share that experience. I've met Shogun a number of times. Our interactions were very light. He did not speak English. It was one of these things, but he was a very humble guy, very quiet guy, very forthcoming guy. And I remember the first time I saw Shogun or even heard the word Shogun, there was a tournament in Colorado in 2003. And if I'm wrong, it was in 2002. They call it the toughest tournament in the history of MMA. And I'm trying to remember, it was an 8-man one night. I was in the tournament. Forrest Griffin was in the tournament. Babalu went on to win the tournament. Shogun was in the tournament. Jeremy Horn was in the tournament. Horn was actually ranked number 1 in the world at that time. In front of everyone, in front of Anderson, in front of everyone, number 1. There was a guy in the tournament that was a Brazilian boxer, real strong, good-looking guy. He went out in the first round, but he was pretty good. And there was another guy in there that was a Russian who had just beaten Randy Couture. And Randy was like the world champion at that time, but somehow went over to Japan and had this match. I don't know a lot about that guy. But if you got to win over the heavyweight champion and all of a sudden you're in this light heavyweight tournament, it was just a really tough night, and Shogun was in the tournament. Trevor Prangley was in the tournament. I think that rounds out the 8. And Babalu and Shogun met up in the semifinals. And everyone knew who Babalu was. Babalu was the favorite to win the tournament. Horn was ranked number 1 in the world, but that was at middleweight. So even though the number 1 ranked guy in the world was in the weight, this was at light heavyweight. Babalu was favored to win it, but Babalu meets up with this guy named Shogun. Good fight, gets to the ground. Babalu puts a triangle, taps him out, moves into the finals. Set that story aside. Shogun then goes on his run. He goes over to the Pride organization and he tears through it. I don't even know if he went the distance for a period of time. He had 4, 5, 6, 7 fights, finished them all. I think one did go the distance, but then that added to the folklore of Shogun. Oh my gosh, this guy doesn't get tired. This guy can push the pace. It was one of those deals. And one thing that Shogun had is he was a shoot box guy. Rafael Cadero, shoot box, but Vanderlei was on that team. And this is when Vanderlei's the scariest guy walking the planet. And Vanderlei was telling anybody that would listen, this guy right here is the next best thing. They ended up in a tournament together in Pride. It wasn't a one-nighter or something along those lines. I don't think. But they end up in a tournament together, and they were on opposite sides, and Vanderlei was telling the media, I tell you right now who I'm going to have in the finals. I'm going to have my teammate. Shogun was a young guy. He was 25 years old. He was no more brash back then than he is now. So there was a bit of a mystique around him. There was a bit of an allure around him. For the same reasons that Vince McMahon doesn't let Brock Lesnar talk, that's by design, to create an allure and a mystique that is more attractive than the attraction it could be itself. That was the thought on Brock. That's the way it worked on Brock. That's the why Brock doesn't do a lot of interviews. I only bring that to you because every now and then in MMA on accident it happens. It happened with Shogun. He was just this mysterious guy, and he was very young and he had a nasty, nasty skill set, largely based around Muay Thai. He would grab you and knee you right in the face. He would elbow you. He would chop your legs. He would use hands. He was great with condition. I just bring that to you because the only loss that he had was to Babalu. that anybody had seen. So Babalu gets into the UFC, and one of the big things on Babalu was that he beat this Shogun. I'm trying to remember how that tournament with Vanderlei and Shogun went. One of them won it, and they did not meet up. But one of them, something happened as to why they didn't advance. They got hurt, they got sick, they pulled out, they got caught. I can't remember what it was, but one of them did go on to win it. And so when Shogun comes into the UFC, he's got a ton of buzz around him. He had so much buzz around him that Babalu had buzz for beating the last one to beat him. That's how good Shogun was. And Shogun got brought in, and he was going to go over right away. They were going to shine him up, bring him in there against Forrest Griffin. Forrest was a huge deal. All right, you guys know that. Still is. So he's going to come in, he's going to beat Forrest, he's going to take this rub. Forrest is going to stay a star because it's Forrest, and now Shogun's going to become one. That's the plan. Forrest had others. Now, history has gone on and worked itself out just fine. Both of those guys became world champions. They can share that moment. I'm just reminding you of Shogun because that might have seemed like a really long time ago. In fairness, it was 2007. Top of my head, 2000, that's probably a good guess, 2006. So Shogun is now talking about, or at least Dana is talking about, that Shogun is going to retire. And he's one of those guys that will go out, liked by everybody. I mean, I'm literally challenging you. I'm asking you a sincere question. Have you ever heard a bad word said about Shogun? That's by anyone, ever. Even in passing, some jerk that's cheered against him one night and said, no, it was just one of these things. And he was so durable and he was so tough and he appeared to really love the sport. I don't have any idea why Shogun would still be doing the sport unless he just loved it. He just loved to compete. This wasn't like some kind of a financial issue or he secretly got a gambling problem or he got robbed by a manager. I mean, you hear these horror stories. That's not what this is. I'm not positive that Shogun wants to be done. I mean, every interview I hear from him, one more. I competed with Shogun. It was so long ago, 2013, but that was going to be his last fight. That's the only reason I inserted myself there, but that was going to be his last fight. He was talking about it's going to be my last one. Well, I'm going to do one more. And then somewhere along the way, it stopped being one. And somewhere along the way, he goes, I'm going to do three more. And then somewhere recently, he won 3 in a row. If you go look at Shogun's record, and each fight was about to be his last fight. Not only was he saying that, but even the promotion was kind of, oh yeah, probably going to be it for him. And then he'd go win. Or he'd go be very competitive. But there was never a dull moment. And he wasn't the personality and the attraction. He wasn't these things. And generally that doesn't work. But there was such a mystique around him, largely because of Vanderlei. Vanderlei had control of the media. He had everybody listening, and Vanderlei was putting him over. Vanderlei was feeling things in the practice room. He goes, man, this guy's a stud. I see how hard he works. I'm established he's not, but I'm giving him the rub. It was a cool move by Vanderlei. I hope Shogun gets what he wants. I don't have an opinion of if I hope he retires or if I hope he fights again. I hope he gets to do what he wants. I don't sense that there's being a forced exit on him. But I also haven't heard from him. I haven't heard that he said he's done. So let's see what happens.